Welcome back to the show. In the hot seat today is Suren Gunawardena, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Bharti Airtel Lanka. During our exclusive interview, Gunawardena discusses the many issues currently facing Sri Lanka's telecom industry, which has many regional firsts to its credit. Bharti Airtel CEO also discusses the advent of 4G and mobile TV, as well as the competition among service providers in Sri Lanka. Here's Suren Gunawardena. Welcome to Benchmark, Suren, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to talk about the telecommunication industry, in which you have quite a bit of experience. In fact, if I'm not wrong, about 17 years. Now, given that experience and the exposure you've had, what is the playing field like today?
Competitive and bloody, because the market currently is fairly saturated in terms of voice, and moving forward, I think the industry will grow only on certain areas, such as data, where Sri Lanka is showing certain amount of progression in this area.
Now, Sri Lanka's telecom industry has been pioneering a number of innovations in the South Asian region, whether you're looking at WiMAX or 3G or HSPA, GSM, CDMA, ADSL, you name it, we've pioneered them. But do you think we could expect more of these pioneering innovations in the near future?
Probably in the data sphere, you will find a lot of value-added services coming through, and I think the IT industry in Sri Lanka are quite active in getting new products and services out to the market, and I think the telcos are getting engaged in strategic partnerships with these IT companies for such services.
What about 4G, which is deemed to meet the demands of the mobile generation? Are we going to be the leading light in that one as well?
4G is something which Airtel in India have launched, but in Sri Lanka one or two operators have gone into testing. The biggest concern, I think, from an operator's perspective is the cost of providing services in terms of bandwidth, the cost of the device which actually connects the customer. So once there is scale in the market or globally, I think 4G will also come into Sri Lanka quite in terms of big net or large networks. But I don't see it happening in the very near future, but maybe 2 years down the road we'll be looking at that.
Now, on the other hand, Suren, the Sri Lankan market hasn't always been open to new technology and embraced them with open arms, so to speak. Video call conferencing and GPS are cases in point. This is probably because of the substantial investment that is required. Now, how can we overcome this challenge?
I think scale will sort of sort this issue out, and I think moving forward, I think bigger players like Airtel would be able to bring this type of scale into the market. And as you see the broadband packaging, you take packaging say 2 years ago and now you find the prices dropping. I think moving forward the prices will continue to drop, and all depends on scale.
How about the advent of mobile TV? Do you think this will take off, and what are the pros and the cons for both service providers and the customers?
I think mobile TV was launched in Sri Lanka some time ago, but I don't think there was any traction in that, because I think the local TV market basically provides fair amount of good content to the general public. So therefore it didn't take off. But as time goes on, with prices dropping in content, then there would be a surge, but I don't see it happening in the very near future.
Now, we are a country of 20 million people. But when you look at the telecommunication market, how do you view the competition? Do you feel it is oversaturated in any way?
Well, this is a debatable question. On the voice side, there is a fair amount of saturation, but I wouldn't say the market is clogged or there is no room or any headroom to grow. There is room to grow, and all this growth will come into play based on services provided by the operator. There has to be additional services, new value-added services coming in. And when that comes in, I think there is room for operators to grow.
How about niches? Do you think our service providers have now got their individual niche markets and their own niches, so to speak?
Some have, I think certain operators cater to certain niches based on income levels of the general public, and I think that's how they have positioned themselves. But I think by and large, most operators compete amongst each other very aggressively.
In this kind of market where you said, yes, there is some saturation, but always there is room for development and improvement, what about the scope? What about rationalization? Do you think we are going to see mergers and acquisitions happen?
I think that will come to a stage where number of operators will sort of merge in different forms. If you look at not a total buyout, but there will be strategic alliances coming into play. There would be an era where infrastructure is shared very aggressively. Currently, infrastructure is shared on a passive basis. You share a tower. But moving forward, you'll find operators sharing total infrastructure. And it has happened in the rest of the world. And I think it will not stop there. It will come to Sri Lanka in the near future, I would say.
Time for a commercial break now. On the other side, we have part 2 of our exclusive interview with Suren Gunawardana. Stay with us. Welcome back. We now continue with our exclusive interview with the CEO of Bharti Airtel Lanka, Suren Gunawardana. When you look at broadband usage, Suren, Indonesia has 10%, Thailand 6%, 21% in the Philippines, 28% in China, 60% in Malaysia, and 100% plus in countries like Singapore and Australia. But where Sri Lanka is concerned, broadband usage is the lowest in the Asia-Pacific region, and market penetration is only about 6%. Given the rapid pace at which internet usage is spreading, this really isn't good enough, is it?
I think the biggest issue stopping the growth in Sri Lanka is the entry point for the end user. Whether he is to buy a computer, he has to think twice today because of the escalation of costs due to various reasons. So therefore, people have actually not bought a computer like they did buy a TV. But this is slowly changing, and I think a lot of financial institutions are now getting into funding of, say, a laptop or a desktop so that people can use it at home. Once the prices start dropping, and also from a telco operator's point of view, I think bandwidth costs, which has to be passed on to the end user, is now slowly dropping. So that so long as the customer has the ability to pay, then there will be growth. The wallet size is shrinking as of today because of the high cost of living.
So what about the fad of the mobile phone replacing the laptop or the desktop?
Well, if you really look at the youth, you'll find that the youth are using the small screen to access Facebook or Yahoo or Gmail. So that is growing at rapid rates. But in terms of pure broadband to the house, that needs to grow.
Now, Suren, during the post-war period, the telecommunication industry enjoyed steady growth and mobile phone market penetration topped 100%. On the contrary, however, network coverage is not up to mark. So what are the challenges that the industry is facing in actually reaching out to those areas?
I beg to differ on that because I think as a country, I think the telecom industry has done well in providing coverage to about 80 to 90% of geographical areas in the country. There would be certain spots where there is no tower to cater to the needs of the consumer. But by and large, we have coverage. We have reasonable voice and data coverage. Not on 3G, but definitely on 2G.
There is now a proliferation of smartphones in the market, and in fact, it is a trend that is growing rapidly. Now, looking at what has been happening in the past, can we expect this to continue?
I think so, because I think by and large, the youth are driving this the smartphone phone penetration quite rapidly. The prices are a concern because I think currently a handset is priced at around 7,000-8,000 rupees. It's a bit prohibitive to the mass scale users, but as time goes on, the cheaper Chinese handsets are basically doing the job.
You, Suren, have been exposed to or continue to be exposed to a lot of regional trends and global trends. So when you look at what's happening out there, what are we as consumers to expect from innovative products and innovation in the telecommunication industry?
Well, from a customer point of view, I think there will be a lot of, from a broadband perspective, there will be a lot of applications which will come, which should make life easier for a lot of us. If you take from an Airtel point of view, we've launched a product called Airtel Money in India, which basically does money transfers between person to person and person to institutions, and that is a revolutionary product. And I think that itself says that you don't have to go to the bank to do something, a transaction to get your money or whatever, or write out a check to make a payment for your electricity or your telephone. So products of that nature will come out and make life easier for you.
So how would products like that actually fit into the relevant industry where banking, for instance, there's a lot of security controls, regulations, firewalls?
Well, I think more mature markets have got over, being sort of inward thinking. They have opened out and they have seen the benefits. And I think more transactions, there's a transaction fee which actually takes place. So the banks will also not lose out. They would anyway sustain their profitabilities and bottom lines. So I think moving forward, I think products of this nature would make a difference to the way people do business.
Suren, with low price prepaid connections being very accessible to people in general in Sri Lanka, purchasing a phone, purchasing the prepaid connection is easy, and therefore, while this is good for the general populace, one does feel that crime and corruption has risen because of this. Now, can service providers in any way take action to prevent or at least to limit the extent of this happening and spreading?
Well, I think there are a lot of mechanisms which are in place today, and if a complaint is made to the local police, then the operators basically make sure that all the information is provided. So in that sense, crime and corruption is curtailed to a great extent because the operators basically provide all the information required, and there have been a number of cases which have been solved because of how proactive the operators have been in supporting the local authorities.
That was Suren Gunawardena, CEO of Bharti Airtel Lanka. The Voice of Business is up next.